Sometimes it's taken, and sometimes it's forced to confess. The world thought it was over, that the coup in Ivory Coast had concluded with President Alassane Ouattara's fall. But what came next was far more dangerous than a military takeover. It was a reckoning. At 4:36 a.m. on the second day of the uprising, a classified image leaked. Woatara, alive, seated under military custody, calm, dignified, but undeniably defeated, not in exile, not executed, but held by his own army. The photo shattered the international narrative. Woatara had not escaped, as Western media had claimed. He was in Ivory Coast, and he was being asked to do the unthinkable. The man who had risen to power with IMF credentials, backed by France and praised by Washington, was now at the mercy of a younger generation of nationalist officers, led by a name soon to shake every embassy in Abidjan, General Sékou Doumbia. He wasn't a politician, he wasn't a celebrity. He was a disciplined, silent soldier with one goal. Ouattara came into power with the West. Let him leave power by rejecting it. It wasn't revenge. It was symbolism, a declaration to Africa and the world that the age of puppets and puppeteers was over. For decades, Africa was forced to choose between silence and survival. But now, a former president was being asked to choose between legacy and loyalty, and the world held its breath. Every revolution has its shadow general, until the day he steps into the light. Before the coup, General Sékou Doumbia was almost unknown outside military circles. No media appearances, no leaks, no flamboyance, just a clean record and quiet movements through the ranks. But within the Ivorian army, he was something else entirely, a symbol of dignity in a force bent under political weight. Born in Korhogo, raised during the turbulence of the Civil War, Doumbia witnessed how politics turned soldiers into pawns and generals into bodyguards for presidents, not protectors of the people. He studied military doctrine in Mali, strategy in Sudan, and insurgency response in Burkina Faso, not through Western programs, but through alliances built across sovereign African defense academies. He refused training invitations from France. He returned every bonus offered to suppress protests, and he kept asking the question many feared to raise: who is the army really serving? By 2024, the top brass saw him as a threat, but the younger soldiers, they saw him as a compass. So when the orders came to suppress another round of demonstrations in Abobo, Doumbia did something unprecedented. He refused. That night, dozens of soldiers joined him. In 48 hours, he had the loyalty of 3 major battalions and control over key transportation routes in and out of Abidjan. He didn't issue a manifesto. He didn't demand power. He marched on the palace, took Ouattara without bloodshed, and made only one request: speak and tell the truth about who you served. It wasn't just about taking down a regime, it was about taking down its narrative. Doumbia didn't want to become the next ruler. He wanted to end the illusion that Africa's rulers were truly in charge to begin with. You cannot break the machine if you do not name the hand turning its gears. In the hours following Ouattara's capture, no shots were fired, no looting, no chaos. And that was intentional. General Doumbia wanted the world to understand this was not a coup of ambition, it was a coup of exposure. Inside a sealed military base on the outskirts of Yamoussoukro, the deposed president was given medical care, food, and a written demand. It was simple, just one paragraph to be read aloud on national television. I, Alassane Ouattara, acknowledge that elements of my governance were shaped and guided by foreign influence, and I recognize the right of Ivory Coast to determine its own political and economic destiny without interference. At first, he refused. He was tired, cornered, embarrassed, but not broken. He believed the West would come for him, that France would issue a condemnation, that the US would call for his release. But no one did. They were silent, waiting, weighing their options, and that silence began to suffocate him. Meanwhile, Doumbia's forces released selected documents, secret contracts, offshore payments, resource agreements signed with French companies without parliamentary approval. They didn't smear him with slander, they suffocated him with receipts. One file alone revealed that a single European energy firm had paid $82 million in development consulting to an account traced back to Ouattara's inner circle. This wasn't a scandal. It was confirmation of what the people had always suspected. Then came the second message from Doumbia, not to Woatara, but to the people. We will not move forward until the past admits what it was. Ivory Coast was not demanding an apology. It was demanding a confession, because true independence doesn't begin with elections. It begins with truth.